going to be late, but I am not. So this is great. Just double checking that you can actually see my screen. It's loading, loading, loading. Perfect. All right. Cool. Let's start this. I have a few things that I want to go through today on this build that we've been now building for exactly 4 weeks. So this is the 4th week of building a chatbot from scratch. And typically when we do these, we've done quite a lot of drop-ins before, where we would basically take a use case and build it within 45 minutes, an hour maybe, and kind of be done with it. And it always kind of leaves a bit of a disappointing afterthought of we build something and it's cool, but it could be so much better. And so with this session, with these type of sessions that I've been doing, what I really wanted to do was build an end-to-end solution. And so I didn't want to just have one conversation or 2 FAQs or something like that. What I really wanted to have was a full-on bot from the FAQs, the conversation builder, and the different processes that we can automate, all the way to dashboards, metrics, integrations potentially, which is always very difficult to do, and what else? Languages maybe, importing content, inviting users, all that sort of stuff. And so hopefully this sort of series has provided you with exactly that. This is really what I wanted to do for this series, and this is week 4, which is obviously quite exciting because it means we've had time to build quite a lot. So let's just recap a little bit what we've built so far, and then we can have a look at what we're going to do today. So okay, so far we've done quite a few things. So we started with designing the bot, which as you'll remember, if you were there, was all about making it nice and on brand. We're still working on a Blast Premier chatbot, which is a nice and blue, very strong blue brand. And so what we wanted to have was every single message. So not only the banner has the logo and all that sort of stuff, but every single message is also on brand with the background color, the slightly lighter blue for the messages from the user. So if I just type anything here, it's obviously just not going to understand this, but if I just type anything here, as you can see, this is the input of the user, and it's also blue, it's also on brand, it's nice and pretty. So that's probably the first thing we did. We had a look at that, and we had a look at the different channels that we have available as well, and we decided to just pick the converse widget because I think that makes sense. There's some exciting stuff about full-page bots that I kind of want to talk to you about, but I can't just yet because I've promised myself that I was going to do a session about it next week. So we're going to have to put a lid on that, but just know that something really cool is happening with that. And then what else did we do? We created one conversation, which was really cool. So we created, if you remember, all of these conversations here are all pre-built within the platform. So I didn't have to create all of this. But if you go back, I think it was session 1, we built this very first conversation. Actually, it was session 2, now that I look back. We built this conversation here, which is about purchasing a product. So the purpose of this session is to build, not only build a bot live and everything and see my mistakes, see my process, all that sort of stuff. It's also for me to actually have a nice customer service bot to demo later on. So this is kind of a 2 birds, 1 stone situation. And so here what I've done is one of the typical customer service type interactions that you might have in a bot is purchasing a ticket. So this is a live event of some sort of live event of some kind. This is esports, and this particular conversation allows users to basically purchase a ticket to the live event. And so we spent an entire session, like I said, 2 weeks ago or so, building this exact conversation. And this is something that you want to go back and have a look at for any kind of reasons, really. Even if you don't work in events, you'll work through this and see really the value of creating a really well thought out conversations. And I've made mistakes while I was building it, and I made really good decisions. I've used a lot of different features, like sending multiple messages at once, using little bubbles for messages as well, which is really cool. What else? We did some branching, we did some carousels with nice images, we did some external links, we did some more branching, we talked a lot about transitions and things like that. So there was a lot of things in that session. Was really action-packed, so I suggest you go back and have a look. So this was session 2, and then what did we do after that? I think so after that we did FAQs. So we created the knowledge base of this bot. So this was last week. So if you want to find the session again, just go back and have a look. You'll find it. It's really, really good to understand how a bot's knowledge is built from the ground up, and how you basically start testing it, training it, improving it on the fly as you're building it. It's very, very important, like I said last week, to spend quite a bit of time training your bot initially. It's kind of like a baby. When you first bring it to life, you want to make sure that you spend a lot of time caring for it and teaching it the right way of understanding things. And yeah, so we did 6 FAQs, and it went quite well. We did 6 FAQs, and then we also did not just that, but we also spent quite a bit of time on training, and that was really important. So we went through the training section here, which at the moment obviously has some messages, but since then I really haven't used it. So this was on the 9th, I think, and then I did some random tests since then. But like I said before, I don't work on this bot outside of these sessions to make sure that this is kind of self-contained, step by step, how to build your chatbot with ubisend type thing. So yeah, we spent a lot of time on this. I'm gonna do this so we can clear things out. This is basically what we did last week. So I created FAQs, and then I went through and trained the FAQs to be just better in general, by exploring the messages that the chatbot wouldn't understand initially, and remapping them to the FAQs that I created around this. And so this is a process you want to spend quite a lot of time on, like I said, because initially you're going to give the chatbot a couple of ways to understand one way of saying things. But as much as you know about your customers, there's always going to be new ways of asking the same question. And so what you want to make sure of is that you try and brainstorm yourself as many as possible, and just type them in, see if they work. If they don't work, train them, and then the bot will remember them for next time. If they do work, success, perfect. And then once you release it to the world, ideally there's a step in between where you release it to your team or to your clients or something like that. But once you release it to the actual world, you'll be surprised that you thought you went all the way through and had thought of all the possibilities, and you basically thought of only about 20% of them, because people are really, really good to think of different ways of asking questions, because everyone's different and everyone has a very different approach to asking questions. Okay, we had a very quick look at here we go, at the follow-up, and we turned this on and off, and I think I kind of glossed over that last week, and so I just kind of want to go back to that a little bit. So okay, let's refocus on where we were. So we obviously created 6 FAQs, and what I want to make sure of is when I ask questions, so I want to make sure obviously that the question works. So I want to get the answer. Where's the next event located? And so here I'm getting 2 tickets, 2 carousel images, which tell me exactly where each event that's coming up is hosted. So we'll have one in London and one in the Maldives, which like I said last time, I'm making most of the content up on this. And so this is really good, but what I'd like to know is if a user is receiving these messages and these answers from my bot very early on, what I want to figure out is my chatbot programmed well enough that the users are actually satisfied with the answers? Because what could very well happen is that I land here in the bot on this website, and I go through this and I ask this question, and this answer is absolutely not what I was looking for, and so I just close the X button here and I'm off and I'm done. Or what could happen is I'm asking this and it's not exactly what I wanted to read, and so I keep asking, where is the next event? Like that, and I keep asking the same question, and see at this time the bot doesn't understand, but it's important to realize that eventually the bot it's important to realize that the bot only has 6 questions at the moment, which is a very, very small amount of FAQs. The typical chatbot will have 100 to 150 FAQs. And so what might happen is, whilst you do that, you kind of lose sight of the things that your bot already knows, or topics that are very, very, very closely related in terms of language, but a tiny little change of word actually means something completely different, like where is the next event located versus when is the next event, for instance. Those are very, very close, and the chatbot should pick up the differences, but there's a chance that you or someone on your team may have trained that specific FAQ to end up very, very close to each other. so much so that maybe when a user asks where is the next event located, what the chatbot understands is when is the next event and answers with a date, and that's not what you want. All of this to say that basically what you want to do really early on is get as much feedback from the users as possible. So again, if we go back to this particular question, so I'm sending this question, this is very good, I'm getting an answer, and what I want to make sure of is that the answer I'm getting is actually satisfying the user's need for this answer. Is it actually what the user was looking for? And there's a few ways of doing this. The first is obviously just by observing. Are people really sticking around with your chatbot quite a long time and just keep asking different questions? Now this is a very, very involved way of looking at this. You'd have to go into the chat transcripts and have a look at, this 16th. So you want to go back and have a look at each transcript and see, okay, are people sticking around? Are people asking the same questions over and over again, etc.? And that's really good, and you want to do that as well, but you definitely want to also have some sort of quantitative data that's kind of anonymized on this. And the best way to do this, which was a long way to explain all of this feature, which is why I couldn't really touch on it last week, is with follow-ups. So follow-ups is basically something that you can turn on, which is going to ask users to rate the helpfulness of your chatbot per FAQ. So let's turn this on. All right. So it gives you a short example here, but we're just going to go straight into the demo just to show you exactly what I mean. So before I would ask a question, I would just get an answer, and that was that. And now if I ask a question, this is what happens. So I'm getting the answer, obviously, we still need to send the answer, but what I'm also getting is, was this helpful? And yes or no. And so this is basically asking directly from the user feedback on this particular FAQ. And so I can say yes. And the bot's just going to say, great, glad I could help, feel free to ask me any more questions. If I send this again, and I say no, it would say, sorry about that, would you like help from a human? Yes, no. And so this does a couple of things. Straight off the bat, obviously, you can see that this gives you a lot of information about how powerful, how efficient your FAQs are. Is your chatbot well trained enough? Are most people saying yes to this question or no to this question? And this is very, very, very important. One of the things you can do with this is, we're not going to do this week because this is going to be too much time, but you can, I'm just trying to find what the thingy is. Help, there it is. So you can basically add metrics here into this dashboard that will tell you how many FAQs were helpful and how many were unhelpful. So obviously this is all in demo environment, so all of these will be 0. But this is very good once it's live. So you want to know, okay, what's the ratio here? Is it 90% of helpful FAQs or 20% of helpful FAQs? Very important to know that. Again, we're not going to go through metrics or dashboards or anything like that right now. So it does this thing, it does this measuring thing, but then also it also gives the opportunity for the user to actually either stay engaged in a conversation. If they've received the answer that they want and they're happy, they could move on, or they also receive a nice note saying, would you like to continue asking me questions? But also it gives the user an opportunity to say no when an FAQ is not helpful and fall back to a human. Super important for a customer service chatbot. You want to make sure that you automate as much as you can, but when the user is lost, when the user is unhappy, when the user is fed up that your chatbot was not, giving them the answer that they'd like, you want to make sure that you don't leave the customer unhappy when they leave your website or leave your chatbot or leave your Facebook page. And so this is really, really helpful. You can basically start handing over to a human. Now, I haven't touched this particular conversation, so I don't think this one is going to work because this is what I wanted to work on today. So yeah, this isn't programmed at the moment, but this is what we're going to look at today. All right, cool. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding of that. So all right, so what are we going to talk about today beyond the FAQ feedback? Sorry. Well, today I kind of want to refocus a little bit on the purpose of this bot. So the purpose of this bot is a customer service bot. And like I mentioned, we want to make sure that the customer is never really put in a position where they cannot be helped and they are completely stuck in a loop. The bot keeps not understanding them and they just can't get out. They just absolutely lost within the conversation. And so there are a few ways to do this. The first is turning on human fallback, which we'll do first. And then the second is we're going to look a little bit at live chat as well, which is very helpful. Okay, so human fallback is something that we can turn on here. So if I just go into chat and fallback here, as you can see, it's not turned on at the moment. And when human fallback is enabled, conversations can be created to handle when the bot doesn't understand a question. So by doing this, I can basically just turn this on, and here's what's going to happen. So the bot is going to ask, if the bot receives a question that the bot doesn't understand, it's going to say, sorry, I didn't understand. And then basically here, based on this number, it's going to try and get the user to repeat or rephrase the sentence a couple of times. So here, 3 attempts. It's going to do 3 attempts. It's going to just say, would you mind trying to rephrase this question? After 3 attempts, what it's going to do is fall back to a human and send an email to alex+csdemo here at ubisend.com. And then importantly, this confidence score is important. This is basically saying, if you're not confident, if your confidence score is below 50% on the messages that you received, which we looked at last week when we did training, so I suggest you go back to that lesson, then it's going to basically trigger this. So all right, so let's say this at the moment, and we'll give this a try. So let's find a question that we could ask that I know we're just not going to have the answer to. I like to do this. This is usually my go-to. What is love? So it's just going to say, sorry, I don't understand. Would you mind rephrasing? So obviously we don't want to rephrase here because we want to trigger that conversation. So it starts again, asks again. Okay, on the 3rd try, as you can see, it just says, all right, sorry, there's something going wrong here. Okay, so first thing I can notice is that this message is duplicated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and have a look on the builder to see exactly what happened here. And then we can fix that. Fall back to human, which is this one. Alright, so looks like these messages have been duplicated. Someone's been messing around. So I'm just going to do that. Delete that. Super easy to use. As you can see, I can just fly through. Delete this mess. Oops, I didn't save it. Message content. Delete. Save. Alright, this one as well. I'm not going too much into depth on what I'm doing here at the moment, just because this is not really the purpose of this particular lesson. So won't worry too much if you're not following. But I'm just doing these things. Here we go. All right, let's try this again. Agree. All right, what is love? Close that first tab because I'm gonna end up having, that's what I always do, I end up having loads and loads of tabs of me testing the same bot and then I just get lost. Alright, what is love again? 2nd attempt, and then on the 3rd attempt it's going to try again, but if it doesn't understand again, it's just going to throw out this fallback. Okay, looks as though I'm having issues understanding your question. Would you like some help from a human? Yes. Okay, can you please tell me your email address and one of my humans will get back to you. Yeah, so I'm going to say alex@hotmail.com. We'll look at all that entire conversation in a second. I'm just showing you the flow of what's happening. Okay, I am very interested in knowing what love is. All right, cool. So I'm sending a short message to pass on to a human, and then the bot just says, thank you, we'll get back to you soon. All right. So this whole conversation really, like I just mentioned, is really there to help your users have a way out of being stuck in a loop with your chatbot. So you can assume that you can imagine that if this was the interaction that your users and your chatbot were having on loop forever, every single time that the bot doesn't understand something, it just says, sorry, would you mind rephrasing? Sorry, would you mind rephrasing? Sorry, would you mind rephrasing? You can really imagine that your users are just gonna close the conversation and move on. And so you don't want that. That just makes angry customers. So this is why we provide this fallback feature. And so you can tweak this as much as you like. So you can obviously bring that down to 1 or 2 messages, for instance. I think 3 is quite nice. You can change this to send to anyone you'd like. And then you can also change this. We only have 2 settings at the moment. It's 80% or 50%, just because based on our experience, these are the 2 sort of settings that you want to play with. And obviously you can turn this off. If you did turn this off, it would just do that loop thing, and it's your decision at the end of the day. We just feel like this is a very important feature to have. Cool. So of course, the human fallback conversation here is right here in the conversation builder. Like I said on session 2, there's loads and loads of conversations that are built by default, and this is one of them. It has a few steps, and we're just going to basically have a quick look at this particular conversation. So we have a couple of unlinked steps here, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into these for a second. So I'm going to open the demo next to us so we can see exactly what's happening. So I'm just going to go through this again so we can see them side by side, because I find that that's quite helpful. And what we're going to do is we're going to tweak the language a little bit to make sure that it's on brand with this particular bot. Okay, so this is the first. The first question is obviously, the first message we get is obviously this: sorry, I didn't understand that. Would you mind? Can you try rephrasing that? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rephrase this a little bit because I don't like the copy. So I'm just going to say, sorry, I didn't get that. Would you mind rephrasing? And I'll give it another try. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Save that. Cool. So we'll redo this in a minute. So, okay, so this message has been sent, has been changed to something that's a bit more blasty. So I'm happy with that. And then after it doesn't understand again, it says sorry again, and I'm not super impressed about that. I feel like the bot should just step aside and not have a really long message. I think this is a bit too long for my bot, particularly for, this is an esport youngish brand, so it should be quite direct and friendly, and this is a bit dry and bland. So I'm going to rephrase this to something like, all right, looks like I'm struggling to understand you. Would you like to talk to one of my human colleagues instead? And so, yeah, so we're going to do this. That's fine. The two buttons are fine. So these are obviously the ones that will trigger the different sides of this conversation. So we can save this. Cool. It's updated that, and then we can have a look at. Obviously, if the user says no, what happens if the user says no? So we can test that. So if the user says no, they don't want help from a human, the bot is just going to say, okay, sorry, no worries. It's not going to say sorry again. What else can I help you with? And so that's quite cool. So it means that you get stuck in the conversation for a bit whilst the chatbot tries, and then if your chatbot gives you a way out of this conversation once it's realized that it's not understanding and it's just struggling. So the bot is giving a way out by saying, do you want to talk to a human? But obviously the user is still in charge, and so the user can say, no, I don't want to talk to a human, because who does. But at that point, the bot can just go back and retake over type of thing. And so at this point, I can re-ask the same question. Obviously, this would be quite counterproductive, but I could try and get back to that, to asking questions, rephrasing, or asking other questions. So this is very important. Okay. So this kind of, no worries, what else can I help you with? What can I help you with, or something like that. I can change that copy a little bit. No worries. Feels like it's a bit boomery, so I'm just going to say no problem, although I am a boomer, so what else can I do for you? Alright, so I'm just going to save that, that's quite cool. Okay, I keep hitting the enter button, so I should be careful about that. Okay, cool. So these three messages are done. So let's go through that first part of the conversation now. So this is the importance of all of this, is that this conversation was built by default, and this is to us a very important conversation. But importantly, you still have full control over editing it, and so that's a really big thing with the ubisend platform. Is we do provide you with all of the tools that you need to create a really good chatbot. But we don't force you to use exactly what we want. In here, I could just create a completely different conversation and have this triggered with videos and GIFs, and I can make it like really friendly. I can have a carousel in here. I could send like videos or API calls and all sorts of things that we looked at in the conversation builder. I could use it into this one very specific out of the box conversation, and that's really cool. Okay, so I'm asking what is love, and so this is now my new copy. So this is cool. I didn't get that. Would you mind rephrasing? And I'll give it another try. So let's send it again. So it's going to say exactly the same thing again. So that's cool. And then if I send this message again, it's just going to say, all right, it looks like I'm struggling to understand you. Would you like to talk to one of my human colleagues instead? Great. So this new copy is good. If I say no, it's just going to use my new copy. No problem. What else can I do for you? All right, cool. So I'm quite happy with that. Now, what I can do is, clean and adapt the main part of this conversation. So when people say yes, what do I want to happen? And so the first thing that we're going to do is capture the user's email. So what is your email is the first step. This is the name of the step, and importantly, obviously, there's a bit of content here. So again, the copy is not bad necessarily, but I just think it could just be better. So I'm gonna say no problem. I'll just grab a few details. What is your email address? All right, so I can save that. And at this point, all I want to do is start to capture capture data. We'll have a look at how we do that in a second, but for now, what I want to do is make sure that the copy is good. So no problem, I'll grab a few details. What is your email address? And then in this next phase, we're asking the user for a short message. So we're going to do please leave a short message. I'll pass it on to my team and they'll get back to you ASAP. All right, I can save that. All right, and then when a message is sent, the bot says thank you. I'm just going to change that. Someone will be in touch soon. All right, perfect. So now what I've done is I've recreated, or I've used the existing conversation to create something that's a bit more on brand, or I feel would be on brand for Blast, by basically going into the pre-built conversation and just tweaking the copy here and there to make sure that it's really like I said, on brand and works with what I'm trying to do with this bot. So this was kind of phase one. This is quite good. We've done the copy, and if we go into the bot, as you know, it will just look exactly what we're expecting it to look like. Now there's a few things here that we didn't touch on. The first is that we're capturing an email address and we're capturing a message, but we're not actually capturing them. Where does this information go? It doesn't go anywhere. Which is a good place to introduce variables. So variables are right here. So variables are a way to basically store data into your platform that you've captured through the chatbot. So when you ask a user for their name, you can, for instance, save that input that they've given to the bot, so Alex, into a variable called first name. And then this variable can, whatever data is inside that variable can be reused elsewhere in the platform. So that could be reused inside the conversation by saying hi, curly brackets, first name, like you would do in an email capacity, or you can reuse it for integrations by sending that data into an external piece of software, like creating a contact into HubSpot. So you could extract the first name, the email address, and the phone number, and send all of that to HubSpot to create a new contact. Or you can use it like we're going to do today into an email, and so you could just capture first name message or the note that the user wants to send, capture all of that, put it into an email, and send that to someone on your team. And so all of this is possible via the ubisend platform, obviously, and you have full control over creating as many variables as you'd like and as many as you see to be really valuable for your chatbot. And so quite typically, the typical type of variables you'll create are first name, so I'll create this one first, phone, and then what else do we usually create? I mean, this is going to change quite drastically based on your business, but quite typically you'll have at least those, because most chatbots will ask for some information from the user at some point. These are all scoped to the subscriber, which is semi-important. It just basically means that every single subscriber will have a different value into this specific variable. So I'm always going to be Alex, and you're always going to be Peter, and you're always going to be Laura, etc., etc. we can actually scope variables to the entire. I can actually change that for something that's been already created. I can actually change the scope to the entire client, which is more complex and requires a bit more thinking through. But yeah, and I can also capture variables and information to these variables from an API or using external sources. Again, more advanced. We're not going to really touch on that, but it's just so you know, it is available. Have a sip. Okay. Let's keep an eye on my trusty Jacob to make sure that everything's running smoothly for him. Okay. Cool. So we've created 3 variables. We're not going to use all of them for now. And actually, I'm going to create another one, which is message. So they don't need to be one word. They can be underscore longer words. So if you have, pizza toppings or something like that, you can say that pizza underscore toppings is. You can create whatever you'd like. Okay, I've created 4 variables, and what I want to do basically now is start matching these variables to specific parts of a conversation. And so in this instance, we're obviously building this human fallback conversation, which is this one here. And like I said, we're asking for a user's email address, but we're not storing it anywhere. And so if someone sends this email address, like I did earlier, I said alex@hotmail.com, the bot is going to figure out, yes, this is an email address and do some validations. We'll look at that in a minute, but it's not going to store that anywhere. And so that email address just gets lost into the ether of the conversation, and you cannot reuse it. So what we'll do here is we actually make sure that this value is actually being used. And so what we're going to do is, in this particular step where we're asking for an email address, upon transition, which is basically saying what needs to happen for a user to go from this step to the next step, so the current step being what is your email address, and the next step being what is your message, we're waiting for the user to do something. We're waiting for the user to send us a message or activate an API call or something like that. In this instance, we're waiting for the user to send us a message that is an email address. Obviously, this is what we're looking for. And upon that transition, when we receive that email address, what we're going to do is we're going to save that into an email variable. And we can save that. Cool. And so now if I close this, as you can see, there's a little bolt icon here, which basically says, upon receiving a message here that is an email address, save that value into email, into the variable email. So very, very helpful. Now my alex@hotmail.com that I sent earlier is not going to be lost. It's actually going to be saved against me as a subscriber of this bot into a variable. So that's very important. And then in this next message, what we're asking for a message from the user. So what's wrong with this user? What do they need help with? And so again, in transition, so to go from what is your message to thank you, we're going to basically wait for a user to send us a normal message. Any type of message doesn't require any validation, because it could be anything from 2 words to an entire paragraph about something that's wrong with whatever they're doing. So we don't want to do any validation here. Again, we'll look at that in a minute. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that we capture whatever they say, because or else again it's lost. And so I'm going to capture that into message. And I'm going to close this. Same thing, little bolt icon here that shows, okay, this value has been captured. And so if I go back to the conversation and I say, what is love? What is love? What is love? All right, if I do yes, if I say yes, I want to talk to someone, and I say alex@hotmail.com. Okay, so now this message, the conversation hasn't changed at all. So I need help with my tickets. So the conversation hasn't changed at all. The user doesn't know that anything is different here. But what we're actually doing in the background is actually capturing these details and making sure that everything's good to go. And so if I go back to the conversation here, I might be able to have a look at what's just happened. So is this one? It's not. I'm just going to update this. Oh, view demo conversations. I'm an idiot. Sorry. So yeah, so we can see that. And so, okay, so this is basically the conversation I was just having with the bot. So you can see that it was Tuesday the 16th of March, a few seconds ago. So this is the conversation we just had. So we had the start of the conversation, the welcome messages, what is love 3 times, and then I said that I wanted help, and I gave my email address and I gave the short message. Now if I look on the right hand side here, we have the stored information against this conversation. So we have The subscriber ID, could be helpful when it was created, so obviously about a minute ago. And then we have the variables that we have stored against this. And so this is where you can see my email and my message. So this is all stored against this particular conversation, against this particular subscriber. For those of you who are a bit more advanced, it's important to realize that demo conversations are not exactly the same as actual real conversations. Every time I go back into the demo, I'm basically a new subscriber. In the real world, if I had this chatbot on my website, the chatbot will retain this information about myself, so my email address or whatever other variables that I might have given it, for a period of time. So there's a retention period where the bot will still know, 20 days from now that I'm Alex at hotmail.com. So basically, all this to say, we're not going to go too much into this today, but this to say that every time I go back, you'll see that basically I'm creating a new subscriber. As you can see, I've created quite a lot of conversations already today. And that's because within the demo, you want to make sure that you're always a new subscriber, so you can test this demo you can test your bot really extensively. If your bot in demo always remembered who you were, it wouldn't provide for a very good test. But yeah, a bit more advanced, but it doesn't really matter. Cool, so as you can see, I'm actually saving these variables, this data against the user, and that's very, very important, because then now what you can do is I can actually start creating, for instance, an email to be sent out at the very last step. So if I go back to my conversation builder here, and I look at the human fallback conversation, I scroll down. So okay, we're capturing an email, great. We're capturing a message, great. And then someone will be in touch. Okay, so we've captured all of that. But what happens here? Nothing happens. There's nothing. The bot just says thank you, and that's that. We've saved the information, but we're not doing anything with it. And so what I want to do is I want to, in this specific email section, I want to send an email to someone on my support team saying, this email address needs help, and this is their message. And we'll do exactly that. So I'm just going to close this for now, and I'm going to go into integrations. We have emails out of the box inside the ubisend platform, which is really cool. And as you can see, there's I don't have any emails set up at the moment, so I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to send this from my chatbot. So chatbot at ubisend.com. I'm just going to use ubisend just in case they have. Would be funny if if Blast had actually a chatbot at blast.com. I don't want to risk it. So the Blast chatbot. So again, this is just the from email that you're going to see, your team is going to see in their inbox, and we're going to send this to support at. Again, I'm just going to do ubisend.com, and I'm actually going to do blastubisend.com, whatever. So this is all made up, obviously. I can CC some people, so I want to CC my boss because she might want to read all of these interactions. And I might BCC my friend Dave, because he likes to see these interactions. He finds them funny. Cool. So I can call this someone needs help. So this will be the subject line of the email. So every single time this email is sent to someone, they'll see this subject line. Okay, and now I can start writing the copy. First, a sip of water. All right. So the copy of the email. This is an email that goes internally, so you don't want to make it, dear team, please find attachment. You don't want to do that. Yeah, that's a bit silly. So what I like to do is, hi there. This person, maybe not. Someone needs help. Here are their details, or here are the details I have and their request. So we're going to do name, and we're going to do message. And so here, like I said earlier, the variables are really, really important, because not only can you store variables in, can you store value into them, you can also resurface these values by reusing these variables at various points in the conversation or in external software. And so here, all I need to do is type this little brackets and just do first name. And as you can see, this first name variable is now in here. And I can do the same thing here, which is message. Good luck. Cool. And so now I can save this. And now I have an email set up. So I have an email set up in which I can resurface the different variables that the different values that we've captured in these variables. This email is going to be sent to support at blast-ubisend.com. It's going to CC my boss, and it's going to BCC in secret my friend Dave, because I'm really excited to share this with him. Okay, so again, we've created an email, that's great, but again, it's not actually tied to any conversation. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the conversation builder, human fallback conversation, perfect, that's the one we need. Scroll all the way at the bottom, and then in this very last message, so you obviously want to do this on the very last message. Once you know that you've captured all of the information you need, you can actually send an email at any point within the conversation, but in here it wouldn't make any sense to send it on this step, for instance, because you haven't captured the message yet. So you want to make sure that you send this one at the very last step. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do email, and I'm going to do set up an email, add a new email, and there it is, that's the one I just created. I can save this, and I can close this. Alright, so let's recap what we've done. We've activated human fallback, so we want to make sure that we provide the users with a way out when they're stuck in a conversation and the bot doesn't understand anything. So after a couple of attempts, so it's going to do 3 attempts, and on the 3rd attempt, if it still doesn't understand the user, it's just going to say, all right, sorry, I'm really silly here. Let me just let the human help you. Let me grab your email address and your message, and I'll send it across. The user obviously has the choice, so you don't want to lock the user into this conversation if they don't want to. And if they decide that they do not want to go through this conversation, they can just say no, and the bot will just, again, fall back to just being a normal bot. If the user says yes, then we go back to saying, okay, let's grab these details. And so we're going to grab the email address. What is your email address? Save that into a variable. We're going to do a bit of validation, which I haven't gone in over. I'll do that in a second. We're going to grab a message, and we're going to save that in a variable message. And then once we've captured all of that information, we're going to combine it into a nice, neat email to be automatically sent to the member of our support team. Perfect. Okay, quickly just around validation. Validation is actually really important. It's a way basically to make sure that what the user enters to, as far as like information that the user responds to the user, to the chatbot, it's a way to make sure that they're actually entering the right type of information. So in this instance, we're asking for the user to send us an email address, and it's really good to do that, because in the copy that the user is that the chatbot is sending, I'm clearly stating what is your email address. So it's very, very clear that we're waiting for an email address. But users sometimes still need to be realigned to this question, because sometimes people will say, well, my email address is this, but I changed my password last week, and so therefore I don't remember what it is. Could you please send me a letter? And so if the user sends that, that's not very helpful. It's not an email address. So what we want to make sure is that when we ask the user for a very specific format of answer, we actually provide some validation, because that's just going to make sure that the user goes down the right path and only moves forward when they've actually quote-unquote completed the step. Because there's nothing more aggravating than going through an entire flow, and then you get all the way to the end and it's like error, and you don't know why. And this error might have been because you just didn't enter a valid email address at the very first step of that flow, and you have to start all over again if you even know what the issue was. And so to get around to that, we have some validation available here. And so what I have here is we're also obviously asking the user to send us an email address, and what we're doing is we're saying when the user sends us a message that is not, as you can see it's highlighted, an email address, what's going to happen? The chatbot's basically going to say, please enter a valid email address. So I can do a bit of validation. I can do a bit of changes here. I can say, this doesn't look like an email address. Could you try again? Or I'm going to say, please try again. So this is a nice little neat trick. I'm just going to actually quickly go through that. So this is a nice little neat trick. If you're a marketer and you decide to work a little bit in conversational marketing, could you try again here is actually a really bad idea. You shouldn't say that, because people will say yes, and then you're stuck again, because the bot is again going to try to look for an email address, and yes is not an email address, and so it's going to say the same thing. Could you try again? Yes, I just tried. And then it's going to start again. And so what you want to make sure is that every single question that you ask from a chatbot is never rhetorical. You want to ask direct questions. You never want to say, you can ask me any question. Sounds good? Question mark? Because it's rhetorical. Yes, it does sound good. And people will just answer, yeah, no problem, and then the bot's going to be like, okay, that's not a question. And so writing it this way is actually a pretty bad idea. But basically, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's quite cool because when you see that in action, you can see really clearly how this isn't a really good idea. So I'm just going to say, please try again. So again, this is a bit more dry, a bit more bland, a bit more direct. But at this stage, the user really needs to get help, and so we don't want to be fancy here. We don't want to be too jokey. So I'm just going to save this response. Perfect. And so, all right, so we've looked at two things. We looked at the validation aspect. So if the bot doesn't receive exactly the type of message that he's looking for, and this could be anything. So here it could be an email address, but it could be a number. Maybe we're looking for a number. Maybe we're looking for a yes or no. Maybe we're looking for a business email address. So that could be cool, or an emoji, or anything like that. So it's not just email addresses. It's a whole bunch of validation roles that we can follow, and so that's really cool. Okay, so we've saved that. Great, so this is what happens here. So we're looking for an actual email address, and the user will only progress from this step to the next when a message is sent that is an email address, nothing else. Okay, so we've done all of this, and this is perfect. So now we're gonna have a quick look at all of this. All right, I just realized that is 46 minutes past. So I'm just going to try and go through this. All right, what is love? Let's go through this. I feel like I should find a better question to ask. Sorry, I didn't get that. Would you mind rephrasing? I'll give it another try. What is love? What is love? Third attempt, the bot is going to fall back. All right. Looks like I'm struggling to understand you. Would you like to talk to one of my human colleagues instead? So I could say no, I'm not going to do it because we've seen that enough. But I'm going to say yes. Okay, no problem. I'll just grab a few details. So I'm just going to test this fallback, this validation here. No thanks. All right, this doesn't look like an email address. Please try again. Okay, alex@hotmail.com. So we're saving that value into a variable. Perfect. Leave a short message. I'll pass it on to my team. I can't find my ticket number. And then it's thinking a little bit. So if you remembered, this is kind of very. If you didn't catch it, you didn't catch it, but that's fine. But if you remember before, this transition between this message being received and this message being sent was almost instant, which is the way we like it. But here it took it like a tenth of a second longer, and this is because it's trying to send that email. The platform is in the background trying to send that email. Now, obviously, I sent this to a completely random email address that doesn't exist, so it's not going to do anything. But what we can do is we can have a look at the logs and make sure that everything happened perfectly. We can have a look at that. Perfect. So this was the conversation logs of the entire conversation we just had. So it started at 46, I think. So this is when we started. And as you can see, there are all little green bubbles here, meaning that every single thing went perfectly. And so it went from the first message received to the last message received. And if I quickly have a quick look at this, you can see that the user went from sent a message called I can't find my ticket number, and this was at the step of what is your message, and it basically sent the user to the very last step on this transition, which is the thank you, and it transitioned there perfectly. You can see again that it saved my variables here, alex@hotmail.com, I can't find my ticket number, as the message. So everything happened perfectly. So this is all built and done. So very, very important part of your platform, very important part of your chatbot, making sure that you provide the user with a way to fall back to something else than just being stuck on loop. Very, very important. Okay, I feel like that was really, really intense. I thought that I would go through this really quickly, but evidently not. So a couple of other bits that I wanted to look through today, and I think I'll have to stop early, but we're going to look at that nonetheless. So we obviously looked at human fallback in the form of an email, which is good. It's helpful, and it's a really good way to manage your bot and manage the expectations of your users if you don't have a very big team, or if you're very busy, or if you have a very busy team. And so instead, what you could do is you could actually trigger live chat as well. If you do have a bigger team, if you have people who are available all day, or if you already have a live chat agents, and you decide, okay, now I would like to actually start automating some of this stuff, you can actually do both of them within the ubisend platform. And so One way to do this, well, the only way to do this would be to actually start your live chat or turn on your live chat settings. And so if I go into integrations here and I go into live chat, as you can see, I don't have any pending live chats, no one's trying to talk to me, and I have no ticket that I'm currently working on. So this is good, but probably the primary reason for this is that I haven't turned it on. So in the settings here on the top right, I can basically turn on live chat here by clicking this button. As you can see, I have a bunch of hours and things like that I can use. So I could basically just say I want live chat on Mondays to be only from 12 o'clock till 5 o'clock because I'm just too busy, or no one on my team is there, or I don't want us to work on Sundays but I actually want us to work on Saturdays from 9 to 5. All that sort of stuff can be managed and can be decided on a really granular level. I can save this. The more astute among you might have realized that we have a follow-up here as well, which is really cool. So we also have a follow-up for live chat, the same way that we have the follow-up for FAQs, where the bot is going to ask, was this helpful, yes or no. We actually have a follow-up for live chat. So when one of your users talks to one of your agents, they'll have their back and forth, and hopefully the agent helps the user with whatever they need. But at the end of this conversation, when the agent closes that conversation and marks it as done, there is a little follow-up feature that's going to ask to the user, okay, was this helpful, yes or no? And this allows you to obviously make sure that your agents are doing exactly the work that you want them to do. Are they providing value to their users, or are the users really annoyed after the conversation with the live chat agent? So again, measuring performance, monitoring the success of this kind of channel. So I'm not going to turn that on for now, but I can turn this on. So all right, I've turned it on. Again, there's nothing that's going to happen at the moment. So what's going to happen is we can have a look at live chat here. So fallback to live chat is this conversation. Again, it's built by default, and I can have a quick look. Okay, so now when live chat, okay, so this is, I have 8 minutes. All right, let's give it a try. So this conversation is only going to be triggered when live chat is available. So obviously I've set this up at specific hours of the day. So now I think it's from 9 to 5, live chat is available. And the bot is not confident in its response. So again, this is using these, it's using this, did you understand, did you not understand conversation that we looked at earlier, where the bot is just going to try again to understand what the user says, and at some point it's just going to say yes or no. And so at some point, when human fallback limit is reached, which is the number, we had 3 attempts, if you remember, if human fallback limit is reached, it's going to trigger live chat. And if it doesn't, then if the user says no, then we're just going to say no is what can I help you with. So what I want to do is I'm just going to give this a try. I obviously didn't set it up properly just yet, so we're just going to give this a try now. And then if it doesn't work, what we'll pretty much do is set this up together next week. So, all right, what is love? As you can see, this is now, because live chat is available, it's going down this different route of this different conversation. And so the copy that I changed earlier is no longer valid because this is a completely different conversation. Okay, looks like I'm having issues. We'd like to talk to a live chat agent. So again, live chat is now available, and so what I can do now is, what the bot is now doing is providing a slightly different copy to this, because obviously this is no longer capturing your email address and sending a message. It's asking, would you like to talk to a live chat agent? And so I can say yes. And now what it's going to do is say, one of our agents will be with you shortly. And as you can see, there's a pending animation here, which is basically saying, someone's coming, don't go away. And so if I open this live chat view here in a different tab, what you should be seeing is that now I have a new ticket available. And so now, because I'm obviously the only agent in this account, I have a little live chat request here. You can see on the top nav, on the tab. What I can do is I can obviously claim it, I can remove it, or I can ticket it, or I can view the ticket associated to it. We're not going to go into ticketing at the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to claim this, which basically this means that me as a user, as a live chat agent, I'm saying I'm going to answer this question. And so here what happens here is you can see one of our agents will be with you shortly, and then it says Alex Devecker has joined the chat. Perfect. So me here as an agent, I can go back and I see the entire conversation between the user and the chatbot, and I can see that they've agreed to the policies. Perfect. They've gone through the entire onboarding sequence. Cool. The user says what is love, etc., etc., and the user will be with you shortly. Okay, so what I can say is I can now say, well, okay, what if, hello. I can send hello. As you can see, hello has just been sent by Alex de Becker. What can I help you with? Message has been received by the user. And then as the user, I can say, I can't find my ticket number. Okay, the user has sent, I can find my ticket number, perfect. Okay, have you looked in your spam folder? Oh, there it is. No problem, have a good day. Alright, so obviously this was a very simple conversation. Oh, there it is, no problem, have a good day. I've completely helped this user, and so I can do one of three things here. I can delete this request if the request was completely, random. You don't always, people are quite silly with live chat every now and then, so you can just delete the request if it's irrelevant. You can unclaim the request if you feel like you're not qualified enough to answer this question. So this means that the request will go back to the domain pool of requests that the other agents can pick up. Obviously, I'm the only agent here, so this isn't very helpful. Or I can simply mark this as resolved, which I'm going to do here. Marking it as resolved will obviously move this from a live ticket to a resolved ticket, which is helpful as well. And then this is a really cool thing. So this basically allows me to say, well, could this question have been answered by an FAQ by the bot? And if yes, then I'm going to create that FAQ. So here, I can't find my ticket number. It's probably something that you want to create an FAQ about. And so if I click yes here, it's basically going to take me to the FAQ creation. And this kind of makes the snowball effect of we're getting loads of live chat inquiries, and a lot of the chatbot is dealing with a lot of inquiries already, but some of them still move on to live chat, but some of those, a percentage of those, can still be taught to the bot. And so what you can do is basically have this snowball effect of, over time, there's less and less need for human input in this, and the chatbot can do more and more. In this instance, I'm just going to say no. And so now my pending live chats are done. My live chat here is obviously done. I'm not working on anything. And as you can see, I'm now all done. And as you can see, Linux has left the chat and the live chat has ended. And so now at this stage, I can just basically start over again. And that's pretty much it. I'm about 3 minutes away from ending, so I'm just going to end here. I think we're going to have another look at live chat next week, because I want to go through making some tweaks to this. I want to make sure that this is all on brand. And then what we're going to do next week as well is we're going to look at training. So we're going to have another look at how to actually train extensively a bot. So what I'll probably do is send a whole bunch of messages in between. I'm not going to train them or anything. I'm just going to talk a lot to the bot, so we have some stuff to work with. And then we're going to work through feedback. So understanding learn how to understand feedback from the user as we go through the conversation transcripts and things like that. So it's going to be a bit more of a conceptual and manual way of doing things, but still a very important thing to do when you have a brand new bot going through conversation histories and things like that. So we'll do that next week. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Obviously, visit ubisend.com if you have any inquiries about the type of platform we have. Hopefully this kind of inspired you to do some automation on your end. And reach out to ubisend.com if you have any questions, or hopefully see you next week for another drop-in session. All right.